This week, Steven Crowder gets a divorce and a video surfaces alleging abuse. CRS Firearms goes to prison and is looking at 45 years for a novelty item. And Hasbro sends mercenaries to confiscate trading cards? We'll talk about all of that today on the AfterWork podcast. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the AfterWork podcast. Today, really quickly before we get started, I have some Four Roses that I'm going to go ahead and drink. Yes. And, of course, got Dr. Pepper. We're going to be drinking some Dr. Pepper here. And I probably made this a little strong, actually. Yep, that's a little strong, but I'm going to roll with it. Okay, so first story today is about Steven Crowder. For those of you who don't know, Steven Crowder is a right-leaning conservative podcaster, commentator, comedian. Now, he has his own show called Louder with Crowder, and I have to say, I have watched it. I've watched it for about 4, maybe 5 years now, and it's a pretty good show, you know. He does a lot of research with some of the stuff that he talks about, and it's supposed to be a comedy show. He makes fun of things. Now, with that being said, I'm not above having my mind changed on him being a piece of crap, right? So if he beats his wife, if he, is emotionally abusive, this, and that, then okay. But I need hard evidence, right? And so a video came out supposedly showing that after his announcement on Monday that he has basically been living with this divorce for the last 2 years almost. So we're going to take a look at his announcement video from Monday, and then we're going to take a look at the actual footage from the Ring camera that is on their porch. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the actual video where he does the announcement. And I might cut in every now and then.
Hey, we'll be on with your regular programming and Nick DiPaolo in third chair in a little bit, but needed to take a moment here to address some issues out there that are circulating. It's never fun, but well, I guess let me be clear here. I have been living with a proverbial boot on my neck for going on years now. Since 2021, I've been living through what has increasingly been a horrendous divorce. Now, let me say
Okay, pause real quick. So, notice how he made a distinction. He said that for years he's been living with a proverbial boot on his neck. And then he goes on to specify when exactly the divorce proceedings start. To me, at least to me, maybe he's talking about the actual divorce proceedings, and that's what he means. But to me, that sounds like it's been longer than that, before the divorce proceedings, that he's been dealing with these problems, this proverbial boot on his neck. I don't know. That's what it seems like to me. You guys can draw your own inferences. Anyway, let's continue.
To be clear, there is no infidelity, any kind of physical abuse at all on either side. And no, this was not my choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. It's been the most heartbreaking experience of my life, what I consider to be my deepest personal failure. And just so you know, my opinions on parenting and families have not changed. I've always believed that children need a mom and a dad, that divorce is horrible. And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter.
Okay. That line right there has been getting him trashed online because people are like, oh, Steven's abusive and he just wants to lock his wife in and he's so horrible because he believes that, he should be able to keep his wife on a chain in a marriage that she doesn't want to be in. No. Very much no. Stephen is a conservative Christian, okay? I grew up Christian. I'm not anymore. I'm agnostic. But I grew up in the Christian church. So I know what the tenets are, okay? And marriage is a institution, at least to Christians, that is not to be taken lightly. It is not something that you just willy-nilly go, "Oh yeah, I want to marry you." No, it is a large decision because it is supposed to be for the rest of your life. Through sickness and health, through all the problems, you work it out. Divorce is not something that is normally championed or even in some sects of Christianity even permitted, right? Because you're making a vow before God to stick by it's basically a union by God. It's not necessarily even by the state, right? So it is a union by God and the state, the contract that you sign with the government, the marriage certificate or license is just a byproduct of you being married in the church, right? So when he says that the state of Texas is doesn't support him legally, what he means is it's a uh, it's a no fault divorce state. No fault divorce is the worst thing that happened to marriage. Texas is a no fault divorce state. And what that basically means is that anybody, for any reason, in a marriage can say, "I'm done, I want out, I don't want a part of this," without any fight whatsoever, and the other side has no recourse, right? You can just go to a divorce attorney and be like, "I want out," and that's it. And because of the fact that you can just go, "Oh, I'm done," and that's it, normally in states where there's a at fault divorce, the only way out of a marriage is somebody has to do something that breaks the contract that you made to each other. So, for instance, someone cheats on the other, someone is physically abusive, or something like that to break the marriage contract. Right? In Texas, that doesn't exist. In Texas, basically, it's just I don't feel like it, and that's it, right? And then, of course, you can bring into abuse or whatever else in order to win more in the divorce proceedings. So if you can prove this or that, then you get more money, more assets, the children. Just so you can file for any reason and get out for any reason, and then utilize all that other stuff to get more, right? So that I wanted to clarify that because everyone's like, "Oh, he just wants to lock her in." It's like, no, no, no. It's his deeply held belief that divorce shouldn't exist, and that when you make that covenant before God, that it is locked in for life. But he's saying here that even though he still believes that, legally he has no recourse because Texas just doesn't see it that way. Just wanted to make that distinction.
In Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it, period. So for well over a year, in the best interest as well as physical safety of my children, we've decided to keep this issue private and to resolve it privately with the appropriate attorneys, what have you, legal jargon. Now, in all this, one thing I want to be really clear about is certain. True north here is that my children are blameless, completely without fault, and so we decided to resolve these issues privately, as it's in their best interests, both emotionally and physically, to do so. Now, the other issue is, and this is something that I've kept private for likely far too long, many other people knew about this behind the scenes. Some, not all, but some of them in positions of power, influence, leverage, knew of this. They also knew that the safety of my children included keeping it private. So if you're familiar with the idea of extortion, then you know the feeling well. Now, some of these threats were so thinly veiled that I'm frankly surprised you didn't all guess immediately.
Stephen has a lot going on, I guess is the best way to say. He has a lot going on, and that should be clear because people don't do stuff like this if there's not a lot going on in their life. I would like to implore my audience and everybody that isn't paying attention to the situation not to condemn him, but to pray for him. Sometimes people need a prayer. Sometimes people need a scripture. Stephen purports to be a Christian. I am unsure at this moment if it is my place to say more than that. Maybe if I feel in further defense, something should be said, or maybe if I feel that the public has a right to understand certain circumstances.
Okay, so yeah, so I watch the Daily Wire, and I watch like Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Candace Owens, all that stuff. When I saw that clip back when she recorded that, when they were talking about the whole controversy between the Daily Wire and Steven Crowder, I actually watched that and thought, hey, she knows something, but I didn't know what. I assumed that it had something to do with his business maybe being in financial trouble, or the contracts that he had signed with maybe some other company, or something to do with his business and financial problems, right? But the fact that she said what she said, and it alerted me to the thought that, yeah, something's going on with him. I never would have thought that it was a divorce, but kind of makes sense now. Now, her motivations, I guess, were because Steven was, having the whole debate with the Daily Wire and all of that stuff. So I can understand, because she explained the way that she felt about him going after the contracts and basically implying that everybody was suckered into things, and she was offended by that. However, I don't think that gives her right to reveal information like this. So the fact that she said that she might if he kept, going on about it, I don't know how I feel about that. But it does go to show you that when she said it, I picked up on something, I just didn't know what. And the fact that it now seems like it was referring to the whole divorce proceedings and all that, I don't know how I feel about that, right? Anyway, so continuing on.
Well, my children have a right to privacy. Now, some other issues have been, or I should say, inferences have been more pernicious behind the scenes, with demands and threats to use this information that they believe would be so publicly embarrassing to me and my wife at a difficult time that it could be used, knowingly putting my children in harm's way. So to those self-styled Christians, conservatives, and allies, not in my book. Now, if you find yourself, I don't want to get into details, so this is going to likely be the only time I have to address this or want to address it.
So the rest of what he says really isn't all that important as it relates to the whole situation. But I'm sitting here going, okay, so he puts this out on Monday, right? And I thought, okay, he made the announcement because somebody from the Daily Wire or someone else who knows what's going on with him and is frustrated with him might be leaking information soon. So he said, you know what, screw it, I'll go ahead and put something out to, say it. Now I'm starting to think that he put this out because he knew that his wife's family didn't like him and has ill will towards him and are going to try and frame him to be an abusive ex-husband. And the reason I say this is because 2 days later, the video that we're about to watch, the Ring camera comes out, and it was posted by his ex-wife's family. Now, before we watch this video, I want to make sure you guys understand, when it comes to divorces, seldom do they go nicely. Seldom is it a simple, okay, we're just not a good fit, let's split everything, 50-50, and we'll get the kids, every other week. Each of us will split it 50-50. We don't need to involve the courts. I have yet to encounter anybody where that's what happens. I have some friends who have been divorced, who have lost everything, including the house that they solely owned prior to getting married, or that they majority paid for while they were married, and then they end up with only half. I have friends who lost their Social Security, part of their Social Security accounts and retirement accounts to their ex-wives, which, in my opinion, makes no sense whatsoever, especially if the wife worked. So, what I'm saying is, court doesn't necessarily go good for men. And in addition, I have seen a lot of stories and encountered some of my friends and people that I know who have said, hey, the divorce attorney on her side basically goaded her into, doing and saying these things, manipulating things to make it seem like I was bad when I wasn't. And they do that in order to get a more favorable outcome in court. So I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but I'm going to point out some inconsistencies with the video we're about to watch, and I'm going to be pointing out what I think is happening in the video based on friends' experiences, my experience, and the context of the actual video. So let's go ahead and hop over to the video. It's a Ring video from Steven's backyard, I guess. It's not loading. Give me a second. Go forward. It's a Ring camera on his porch, I guess. And you'll notice at the very beginning of this, the first inconsistency. So it says that it's a video of him emotionally abusing his wife. The family says she hid emotional behavior for years, but here's a very important thing. The Ring camera that is being used here, if I'm correct, because I've had Ring cameras before, it's either a floodlight camera or there's a little round camera that you can use. I don't think it's the doorbell camera, because that's a different camera. And why would it be here? Like, there's no reason for a doorbell. So it's either the floodlight camera or the other one. These Ring cameras pick up movement and start auto recording. But at the beginning of this video, they're halfway through a conversation. So my question is, why does the video start here? Why does it start here and not show the entire beginning of the argument? That's a good question. What context is missing from the beginning of the argument that we're not hearing, right? I'm just saying, normally when we see, like, for instance, police body cameras for shootings, people will clip like a 10-second or a 30-second clip and post that and be like, oh, look, they shot this guy for no reason. But then you get the full 10-minute video and they had ample reason and reasonable suspicion to stop the guy, and then it went from there. So my question is, why does the video start where it starts? Okay, so we're going to go through this video, we're going to break it down, and I'm going to try and explain as much as I can based on the limited knowledge that I have and based on my experience throughout. So
I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary of abusive and cruel.
all right, pause. We got to pause right there. 7 seconds in, bro. 7 seconds in. He says, I drew a boundary and you just did it. I drew a boundary at abusive and cruel, and she says, because that is abusive. And he says, you're not taking the car, right? So, I have a question, because later in the video, this will be relevant. He says, I drew a boundary. What does he mean by that? Based on everything that I've seen on his show and on his social media, about, let's say, false rape allegations, false abuse allegations, stuff like that. What he's saying here is, don't say that I'm being abusive and cruel, because I'm not. And you using that language is a boundary for me. You can't say that. You can't lie and say that when that's not what's happening, right? So he's saying that's my boundary. Don't sit here and accuse me of something that's not happening if we're going to have a productive conversation. You see this in a lot of his Change My Minds, where he tries to define the parameters of what we're saying, right? And in a debate, that tends to work. But when it comes to interpersonal relationships, it's a lot harder to be that, debate type person, because you're not trying to necessarily win a debate, right? So right here, I'm seeing that the stage is being set for later on in the video, when he's getting pissed off that she keeps saying that he's being abusive, right? I don't know about you, but I would get a little ticked off if somebody kept saying things to me that weren't true, or accusing me of doing things that weren't true, right? So already he's like, this is the line. Don't cross that line. We're going to have a productive conversation, but you can't cross this line. Continuing on. Okay, so I'm gonna point out two things here. One, he's saying you can't take the car, and he states his reasons for that in a minute, and we'll talk about that then. But he says, do you respect the man, right? And he talks about wifely duties. Now, one thing to remember, as I said earlier in the video, is he is a Christian conservative. There is a very clear dynamic between the men and the woman in the Christian religion when it comes to marriage. And what that dynamic normally is the man is the breadwinner, he is the protector, and the wife takes care of house and home. Now, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but from my understanding, both of them are Christian conservatives. They've been together for a decade. So, he expects his wife to do wifely things. And if she's not doing them, he's getting frustrated. I know from my own personal experience how that feels, okay? When you're with somebody and you're making the money, you're paying the bills, or you're paying a majority of the bills, and the other person is basically doing nothing. No contribution, no whatever. Now, am I saying that's exactly what's going on here? No, because all I have to go on is this 3-minute clip. I don't know the intricacies of their relationship. But under the assumption that that's what's going on, his statements here make sense. Again, I'm not saying I know what's going on. I'm just saying, based on my personal experiences, friends' personal experiences, and the like, that I can see where this is going, especially because I understand how the Christian conservatives operate when it comes to marriage, and how what he's saying about the respect, right? So when it comes to respect, men value respect above almost everything else, right? So if a man is sitting there going, hey, look, I need you to do this, this, and this because I feel like that's your wifely duty, and you don't do that, now I feel disrespected. That's going to create issues. Now, we'll get into some of the other things, relating this situation later. I just wanted to point that out.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back. No, that doesn't work either.
you understand the difference between one light being set to the second and you going to die?
Okay, so right there, like I said before, when I was talking about why the whole one car situation. First of all, I don't know why they only have one car. That confuses me a little bit. There's probably various reasons. Maybe the car's in the shop. Maybe they only own one car. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, okay, so for right now, they only have one car. Steven runs a business that requires lots of research, requires lots of running to and from places, and because he runs the show, his life is basically set on a schedule. So he has certain times allotted for certain things, right? So gym, an hour, going to his parents to do something for an hour, going here to do something for an hour, hitting the recording studio for 3 hours to film this, then doing his show, then doing this, maybe researching here. So he's saying, look, I can't be left at home to where I can't go and do things, right? I can't be stuck where I need to go and do this, this, and this that's on my itinerary for the day while you just go off and say, well, I'll be back when I'm back. So what he's saying is, look, you taking the car and just being like, well, I'll be back when I'm back doesn't work because my life is on a schedule and yours isn't. My assumption here is that because she's 8 months pregnant, that she stays home, regardless of if she worked or not. But also, my assumption is she doesn't really work. I could be wrong about that, but I would assume that at 8 months pregnant, she's probably not doing a whole lot of work, aside from, housework or whatever. Now, I'm sitting here going, okay, so if he's saying that it's because of that, it makes sense that he'd be like, look, you can't just up and take the car and then disappear for an unknown period of time. Either you're going to go and do the thing that I'm asking, which is go get this and this and come right back, or I'll go do it. Because he said earlier, he's like, I'll go do it if you're not willing to go and do it, because it needs to get done, and I just need to know. So she's saying, well, I'll go do it, but I'll be back when I'm back. And he's like, okay, I can't do that because I got to be X, Y, and Z later. And, and some of you guys might be asking, well, why doesn't he take the Uber instead of telling her to take the Uber? Well, if he's going to have to go to 4 or 5 different locations during the day, that's 4 or 5 different Uber bills. Whereas for her, it's to the store and back. So that'd be one. So he's thinking of it in a monetary mindset. Again, if he's on a time scale, another thing that people are like, oh, well, she's 8 months pregnant, she shouldn't be, moving around and doing this, this, and this. And it's like, okay, yeah, but you got to think about it. He's asking her to do things that a pregnant woman can do, right? It's not that difficult to go shopping, right? And he has to make money. So he has to be able to adhere to his schedule, right? Again, this also goes back to how the traditional Christian conservative thinks about the roles in marriage as well. The man is to be served by the woman. Not in like a slave type situation, but more of like a loving servitude. And he doesn't feel like he's getting that. And you'll see that in a minute. So let's continue with the video. Okay, so right there, the whole watch it, fucking watch it. Okay, people are pointing to that and saying, oh my God, he's so abusive and shut up. Seriously, right at the beginning of the video, he said right at the beginning of the video that he drew a line, a boundary that shouldn't be crossed, and that boundary was being called abusive and that she shouldn't be saying that. He said, that is my boundary, okay? And then later on, she says it again. So, of course, he's going to be like, hey, watch it. You don't need to be talking to me like that. You don't need to be calling me that unfoundedly. Is that a word? I don't know. I think that's a word. But my point being, this sounds like a regular fucking argument between between spouses. Like, I'm sorry. You know how much out-of-pocket shit I've heard my mom say to my dad? Like, you know how many times I've been over at a friend's house back when I was a kid, and the parents were going at it, and then later on they were fine? And I heard some crazy crap come out of their mouths. And they're still married to this day, perfectly happy. Of course, I don't know what goes on behind locked doors, but I really doubt that every person I know has a terrible marriage, okay? So, again, we're going back to this thing where she's saying things, and he's like, hey, don't be saying that. And notice, at no point does he even flinch to get up. It's not like he's going to get up and just backhand her or something. Like, he's just sitting there smoking a cigar. He hasn't moved from this position in, like, the entirety of the video so far. He's just sitting there having a conversation. Okay? So, I'm sorry, but you guys sitting in there going, oh, that proves it. That proves that, you know, he's like, no, it doesn't. All it proves is that he didn't like what she said. And, again, going back to the whole Christian conservative thing, he believes he's the head of the household. He believes that his word is what goes because he's the head of the household, because that is the belief. Therefore, he's speaking with a tone of authority, right? So he's basically speaking as if what he says goes, no matter what. And because of that, the way he says watch it isn't necessarily the tone of somebody who's going to backhand his wife. It's the tone of somebody who's like, you need to listen to me because what I say goes. It's that simple. Now, again, if more video comes out and it shows him actually being abusive to his wife, then okay. But as of right now, I just don't see anything. So, continuing on with the video.
Receive love from you, and the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D. You just put on it, you go, now, but I love you more than life itself. Okay, put on some gloves. Now, but I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous.
So that's another thing that people are pointing to. They're like, oh my God, he just told his wife, after she said, I love you, he said, I don't love you. Come on now. Come on now. You think she's never said something like that to him? You think that people who are married or just in a long-term relationship don't say out-of-pocket shit all the time to each other when they're angry? Come on. That's ridiculous. And you know what? Maybe, again, we don't know how long they've been having problems at the time that this video is recorded. So, for all we know, they've been having problems for like 2 or 3 years. And he's basically at the point where he's like, dude, you don't do the things I ask. You don't do your wifely duties, and I'm at the point where I just don't feel that love for you that I used to before. The feeling's not the same because you don't do what you're supposed to in this marriage. Again, this is not my viewpoint that I'm saying here. I'm saying this is what his viewpoint is based on the traditional conservative beliefs of marriage and the roles within a marriage. I will say that was kind of a fucked up thing to say to his wife, but when it comes to fights between spouses, fucked up things get said. Like, there's no way around it. Somebody's going to say something that is completely out there at least once or twice. Now, do I think that that what he's said so far amounts to emotional abuse or verbal abuse? No, no. Come on now. Now, if this was the type of stuff that he just says all the time, or calls her a whore, or you know basically breaks her down all of the time when they're not arguing, just in regular life, like, oh, you're fat, you should, work on that, or like tears down her self esteem outside of fights, then yeah, it probably would be. But again, we don't have any evidence of that. All we have is an argument that started halfway through the argument so far and seems to be about him saying, look, you don't do your wifely duties. And I'm kind of sick and tired of it. And now you're wanting to leave me without the vehicle that I need to do my schedule for the day, which includes running a business, when you could easily just take an Uber. And you're not even willing to do the small things like, give the dog medication or this, and that. Okay? So, again, not saying that, I am defending him outright. I'm just saying that this particular video isn't really showing much. So, let's continue.
You're right, Raven. Someone day in and day out, worthy of a wife, no matter what. This isn't a wife. Hillary, come on now. I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to engage anymore. I'm going to go. I'll get text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you. Are you committed enough to do those things? I'm not trying to. Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you and committed to that. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? I'm ready. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs? Or you take that?
Okay, so right at the end there, you can see he's basically like, hey, can you walk the dogs? Can you give them their medication? Do I think that a pregnant woman should be expected to walk 2 dogs? No. I don't think that an 8-month old or an 8-month pregnant woman should be walking 2 dogs, especially dogs that are larger. Because, if they decide that they just want to run off, they might knock her over. But from my understanding, both these dogs are pretty well trained, so maybe. And it also depends, does he have somewhere to be? Like, did this fight start because he's like, hey, I gotta leave in a little bit, and these dogs need a lot of exercise, so I need you to take them on a half an hour, walk while I, go do something? I don't know. I don't know how long they were arguing prior to the start of this video. All I know is it was cut and made to look like he's the asshole. And then at the end here, man, this text. As the Crowders head inside, Steven gets angrier and angrier and by his own admission screams, I will fuck you up, at his pregnant wife, Hillary, who then flees their home. This is completely unsubstantiated. It's just text that says, this is what happened. And they say by his own admission. I have not seen him admit to that. So what do they mean by his own admission? Like, is it in court records? Is that what's going to be in the divorce proceedings? Like, I don't understand. Do they have texts? Like, I don't, like, this is all they've released. So, I don't know. But I see no proof that that happened. So, at this point, it's unsubstantiated. So, so we're going to scroll down and we're going to read this. So it says, towards the end of the exchange, Hillary says to her husband, your abuse is sick, blah, blah. Okay, we covered that part. Moments later, off camera, Steven Crowder, by his admission, would lose control, screaming at his pregnant wife in a threatening tone, "I will fuck you up," which led his wife to flee their home. What do they mean by his admission? Did he say this to you? Did he admit, like what do you mean he admitted it? I don't have, there's no proof of it. All it says is in this article is that's what he said. I'm not gonna take some random person's hearsay or even his wife's hearsay without proof. Sorry. So let's see. In a statement sent to me by her family, they say she spent years hiding the mental and emotional abuse, that he lied about the circumstances around their divorce, and that he wasn't present for the birth of their children. Okay. He wasn't around for the birth of their children, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because he was in the hospital because he had surgery on, I believe it was July 1st, which was a couple weeks after this video. He had surgery on his chest because he has a genital, or a congenital, I think that's the word, congenital disorder or hereditary disorder, where his chest caves into his heart and causes complications. And he was having metal bars inserted into his chest to push out his chest. And he had complications from that in which he almost died. So yeah, if I almost die in the hospital and I miss my child's birth, I think that's a pretty good reason. Yet they're framing this as if he just missed it just because he's a piece of crap. Okay. That's another thing that's why I'm like, okay, you cut the video, you make an unsubstantiated claim, more than one so far, and now you're framing it like he didn't care about his children when he actually was in the hospital or recovering from being in a hospital. Okay. Documentary evidence I reviewed while reporting this story backs up their assertions. Why didn't you release it then? So you say you have evidence, you say you have documentary evidence of these assertions, yet you released a video that doesn't prove any of it. Okay. The statement in its entirety is printed later on this story. The Ring camera footage documenting the moments leading up to the moment to where he said it was the pinnacle of aggressiveness in their marriage, but was also part of a pattern of emotional abuse. Well, hold on. You said that he says that this is the pinnacle of the aggressiveness in the marriage. That was the pinnacle. Him being like, "Hey, I don't want you to say that I'm abusive when I'm not. Can you not do that? That's my boundary." And then she does it again, and the most he says is, "Watch it. Fucking watch it." If that's the pinnacle of his aggressiveness in their marriage, then, well, I have a hard time believing that he's abusive at all. Okay. Neither Hillary nor Steven is contending that there was physical abuse in the marriage or sexual infidelity. In audio files and text messages I reviewed, Steven Crowder admits to some of his faults, which include a volcanic temper repeatedly and at times regretfully. Again, you reviewed them. You're saying that it's out, but you're not releasing them. Release the messages. If you have them, if you have the evidence and you're making claims, release it. I am so tired of people making these claims and being like, "Oh, well, yeah, he did this, they did this," and you don't have the evidence. And and here's the other thing. If the reason that they're not releasing it is because, "Oh, well, we don't want to mess up the court case," then don't fucking say it. Don't fucking sit here and say, "Oh, this is what happened," if you're not going to release it. Because if you can't release it, don't say it. It's that simple. Wait until it comes out in court and then go, "Shocking revelations from the court." Do that. But don't sit here and go, "Oh, well, this is what happened, but we're not going to show you any proof that it happened. But according to sources I spoke to who are familiar with their relationship, Steven Crowder's omissions often came after a sustained period of mental and emotional abuse, and he didn't seem to be able to control his impulses. This story is based on conversations with multiple sources, none of whom would speak to me unless they were granted anonymity. I also reviewed text messages, extensive audio files, and personal videos documenting the Crowder's marriage. I reviewed them, but I'm not going to show them. Hillary Crowder was not available for comment or conversation with me on more confidential terms. 2 messages sent to Steven Crowder via his website requesting comment have yet to be replied to by the time the story was published. If he does reply or comment publicly, they'll be posted here. This story will be updated. Essentially, this whole thing boils down to he is mad at her or upset because, she's not doing her wifely duties, and he's expecting her to do certain things, right? But this video has so many holes in it, so many questions. I'm like, I can't sit here and say that he's a piece of shit. I just can't. Again, if it comes out, if they actually release the texts and more video or anything that proves what they are saying is true, then I will make an updated video where I sit here and I go, he's a piece of shit. But as of right now, all we have to go off of is a selectively cut video that has an unsubstantiated claim at the end and no real context for why they were arguing. The argument itself is really benign and not really that bad. And then a bunch of stuff in the actual article that says, well, this was said, but we don't have anything to prove it. So, and this is the problem with today's media. They come out and they say these things about this, and they go, oh, well, this, well, that, well, this, and they just frame it however they want. And then they say, oh, well, we have sources that are familiar with, we have text messages and this and that, but then they don't release it. They don't show, they just say whatever they want to make you, because look, the media has had it out for Crowder for a long time. They've released things that weren't true about him in the past. So the fact that they're doing it now is not to be unexpected. Again, I'm not defending Crowder under the assumption that, that he can't possibly have done these things. Because, yeah, he might possibly have done them. I don't know. But as of right now, we live in a country where you're innocent until proven guilty, and I take that to all aspects, not just criminal law. When it comes to divorces and stuff like that and allegations, I apply it there too. So until actual information that shows stuff like what they're alleging, I'm just not going to believe it. Again, I will make an updated video if something changes and it comes out. Again, I'm filming this on Friday and it's being posted on Saturday, so if something comes out in that time, I may have to make an updated video come next week. So just, you can comment down below and tell me, oh, I'm wrong or whatever. If something comes out, that's fine. I'll make an updated video come the next week. But again, as of right now, as of the time that I'm making this video, I see nothing besides a not even that heated argument between a man and woman who seem to have differing views on their roles in a relationship. So, anyway, guys, so that's the whole Crowder thing. Tell me what you guys think about it. I know that, we don't normally get a look into people's lives like this. So you let me know what you guys think about this whole thing with him. And we'll maybe talk about it in a future video again. I'm sure more things will come out about it. Anyway, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and move on because Jesus Christ, we've been on this story for like almost 45 minutes, and I'm probably gonna cut some of this stuff out because I'm sure I repeated myself, or there were spaces where I need to redo stuff. But so we're gonna move on to the next story. All right, so the next story we've got here involves something that's kind of ridiculous. Okay, so I have friends that play like Magic the Gathering, and it's similar to a trading card game that I used to play. Um, for those of you who don't know what Magic the Gathering is, it's a trading card game where you can buy packs of cards from like card shops or whatever. You open them, and then you get different cards to create different types of decks. They had, I think, I don't play Magic, but if it's anything like other card games that I've played, there's specific classes and stuff that you can put together. I believe Magic the Gathering goes by colors, so like red, black, white, stuff like that. And each card represents like an element or a type of magic, and then you combine the cards into decks, and then you play with the decks to fight each other, right? Kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, World of Warcraft, stuff like that. So these card games normally are put out in pack releases, or sets, right? So when a new set comes out, there's a list of cards that they have manufactured, and you get these cards in various forms of rarity. So some cards are more rare than others, where they've only made maybe like 10 or 12, whatever, for the entire set. And then you have other cards that are super common, where there's like hundreds of thousands of those versions of the card. So when you open a pack, you have a chance of getting like rare cards, this, that, blah, 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 right? Apparently, somebody messed up, and they sent out a pack that was not, or a set that was not supposed to be released for like another 2 weeks to a YouTuber. He went to a store, bought them, and realized, hey, these are not the packs that are the ones that I thought I was buying. These are something different. And he live streamed it or posted a video about it. So Hasbro, the parent company of the was it Wizards of the Coast, I think it is, sent the Pinkertons, a private detective, they're mercenaries basically, to his door to confiscate legally owned property. Yeah. So let's hop right into this. Let me see if I can bring up the actual story here. Okay, so here we go. So when a highly anticipated set of Magic the Gathering cards leaked on YouTube last week, it's hard to imagine anyone would have guessed the incident would end with the involvement of one of the most infamous private security firms in the world. And again, one of the things with the Pinkertons is they've been banned from working with the U.S. government. Let that sink in. That's who Hasbro hired. So, if you're not familiar, Aftermath is an upcoming 50-card Magic the Gathering set Wizards of the Coast will release on May 12th. It's billed as a supplement to the game's current March of the Machine expansion, which has been available since April. Predictably, I don't know how to... Old school MTG's unboxing video was all anyone in the Magic community could talk about. Based on Wizards of the Coast's reaction, it's safe to say the video irked the Hasbro-owned publisher. Over the weekend, Old School MTG uploaded another video, this time titled The Aftermath of the Aftermath, Everything is Gone. In the clip, the YouTuber says Pinkerton agents showed up at his home on Saturday morning and began demanding he hand over the stolen product. I fail to see how it's stolen if he went to a card shop and purchased the packs illegally. It's not his fault that somebody at your company fucked up. Just saying. I got up and recorded some videos, he states. Right after I got done with the videos, dogs started barking because somebody is at the door. I come out and the wife's answering the door, and it was the Pinkertons. If you live in the U.S., the Pinkertons need no introduction. The company is one of the country's oldest private security firms, with its original incarnation, the Pinkerton Detective Agency, dating back to 1850. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Pinkertons made a name for themselves with their anti-union operations, a job they continue to do today. Old School MTG speculates the person he bought the unreleased cards from likely didn't know they sent him an unreleased set. Somebody screwed up and sent out the wrong cases to the gentleman that I bought the boxes off of, because when he sold me the stuff, he said he was selling me March of the Machine collector's boxes, not Aftermath. After recovering the leaked Magic the Gathering set, including the empty boxes and wrappers, the Pinkertons put Old School MTG in touch with a Wizards of the Coast representative who's very apologetic about making my wife cry first thing in the morning by sending these heavy-duty lawmen. Yeah, a bunch of dudes show up with guns to your abode, your dwelling, and go, "We're here to confiscate your legally owned items because the company we work for fucked up, and we're gonna threaten you with jail time, blah 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 blah, this and that." Yeah, they better send a fucking apology. Man, a Wizards of the Coast spokesperson confirmed to Polygon and Kotaku that the company sent the private security firm to Old School MTG as part of their investigation into the leak. The YouTuber says the contact they spoke to at Wizards of the Coast offered to send them free products as compensation for what had happened. For what it's worth, his YouTube viewership has doubled since. Who cares about if his YouTube viewership doubled? Yo, some dudes with guns showed up to his wife's house and threatened him with police action. Now, it doesn't say in this article, but there was another article that said that they basically threatened him to get the sheriff's office to come down and arrest him because he had stolen property. It's not stolen property if he bought it legally. It's not his fault if somebody messed up and sent the wrong packs out. I wouldn't have given it to him. They have no legal right to that. They can't just be like, "Oh yeah, like we're gonna come and confiscate your crap." No, you're not taking my stuff, and you can get away from me. Call the police. Like, it's gonna be a civil matter anyway, right? And they would probably lose. Like, I'm sorry, but no. I just find it ridiculous that a toy company sent mercenaries to some dude's house to confiscate toys. What a world we live in, huh? Speaking of armed men coming to your door and wanting to screw you over, we have another story. About somebody who basically got in trouble for selling not they're novelty items, basically, right? And okay, yeah, do they poke the bear of the federal government? Yeah, they kind of do. They kind of poke ATF, but still. So, CRS Firearms, a YouTuber, was convicted, along with one other man, for conspiring to transfer unregistered machine gun conversion devices disguised as pen holders. So, federal jury today found Christopher Justin Boyer Irvin and Matthew Raymond Hoover guilty of conspiring to transfer unregistered machine gun conversion devices that they referred to as auto key cards. So, basically, and I would show you guys the actual auto key card thing, but based on the decision in this court case, me just showing you a picture of the auto key card could land me in federal prison because that's how ridiculous this shit is. So I'm not going to. Anyway, basically the auto key card is a business card, credit card sized sheet of metal that has very light etchings on it that show an outline of something that you could theoretically cut out and maybe use if you manufactured it correctly to make your full or your AR-15 full auto. So, but it requires you to do additional work. It's kind of like an 80% lower, and 80% lower is not considered a firearm because you actually have to mill it out to make it a firearm lower. So it's basically the same thing. Like, it's a blueprint, basically. Are blueprints now illegal? So Irvin was convicted of 7 counts of transferring unregistered machine gun conversion devices, 3 counts of possessing unregistered machine gun conversion devices, and 1 count of structuring cash transactions to avoid currency transaction reporting requirements. Hoover was also convicted on 4 counts of transferring unregistered machine gun conversion devices. Irvin faces a maximum penalty of 110 years in federal prison, and Hoover faces a maximum penalty of 45 years in prison. Yeah, so these guys are basically looking at the rest of their lives in prison because they made a business card that had pictures on it. It's not like they were selling the completed lightning links, which is what these things are called. It's not like they were like, oh, here's a completed lightning link you can just drop in your air and make it full auto. They're like, no, here's a picture of a lightning link that you have to cut out with heavy duty tools and also bend it in the correct way, and if you don't do it correctly, your gun's just gonna jam. That doesn't sound like, in my opinion, it's a machine gun part, right? It's a piece of metal that, unless you know what you're doing with it, you can't do anything with it anyway. According to testimony and evidence presented at trial, Irvin's bank contacted the ATF to report that employees believed that he was trafficking machine gun conversion devices. So they basically followed him to the post office and watched him mail these things out, right? He was running an online business selling machine gun conversion devices known as lightning links etched into metal cards, which he referred to as auto key cards. Irvin described the auto key card as a pen holder, a novelty, and a political sculpture. A lightning link can be dropped into an otherwise legal AR-15 type firearm and convert it into a fully automatic machine gun. Federal agents from ATF and the U.S. Postal Inspection basically followed him and watched him, drop the stuff off and mail it out. Here's the important portion of this. The ATF examined the auto key cards, and a firearms enforcement officer was able to remove the pieces of a lightning link from an auto key card using a common Dremel rotary tool in about 40 minutes. How many people do you know that have a Dremel rotary tool or even know what the fuck that is? I only know what that is because I work in a warehouse where we use them, but I don't actually know how to use it, right? So you're telling me that it's readily convertible because it takes almost an hour to cut this thing out using a tool that most people don't have or know how to use. That does not seem readily convertible. Readily convertible to me would be like if they made it to where it was like a punch-out card to where you could just grab the card, press it out with your thumb, and then bend it and drop it in. That's readily convertible. Having to have a tool that nobody really knows how to use aside from machinists to cut it out and it take almost an hour to do it and then be able to put it in that's, come on, really? When the firearms enforcement officer placed the 2 pieces of the lightning link into an AR-15 type firearm, it converted the semi-automatic firearm to be fully automatic. What they don't tell you here in this article is that they tried it more than once, and they only got one to work. So there's 2 pieces that you have to cut out of this thing and bend them a certain way and then put them in, and they work together to complete it to make it full auto. But the thing is, if you fuck up one of these pieces, it doesn't work. And out of the couple dozen times they tried, they only got one to work. And because they got the one to work, they were like, yep, it works. It's a full auto. When all the other ones basically made it a bolt action gun because it kept jamming. Does that sound like it's readily convertible? If it takes 40 minutes and a tool that not a lot of people actually know how to use to cut it out, then 90% of the time you cut it out and put it in the gun, it's just going to jam it instead of making it full auto. That does not sound readily convertible to me. Just saying. Now, that is for Irvin, right? That's he was selling these things. So even though I don't agree with him being arrested, I can understand their thinking on why he should be arrested much more than Hoover. Hoover just ran a YouTube channel called CRS Firearms, which he advertised them because Irvin contacted Hoover to be a sponsor for Hoover's YouTube channel. So, are we supposed to be legally responsible for just advertising because I have a sponsorship and he's telling me what to say? Because most of the time when you get a sponsorship, the sponsors will go ahead and send you like a script or like like bullet points of stuff that you need to say in the sponsorship ad. So, in his videos, Hoover stated laws only work if we follow them and encourages viewers to use discreet ordering by mail to purchase auto keycards. Hoover stated that his viewers could cut a lightning link out of the auto keycard, drop it in your receiver, scratch your full auto itch, throw it away when you're done, and no one's the wiser. Okay, and? So what? He's right. Laws only work if we follow them. How many times has civil disobedience worked? Quite a few. Now, as for the drop it in your receiver, scratch your full auto itch, and then throw it away when you're done and no one's the wiser, I mean, yeah, he's not saying you should do it, and he's not encouraging you to do it. He's just saying you could. There's a big difference between do it and don't. He's saying when he encouraged his viewers to use discreet ordering, he's basically like, look, if you're going to buy these things, here's what you can do with them. If you're gonna discreetly order it. He's still not saying actually buy it. Anyway, regardless of that, he wasn't the one who was actually selling the items. He was just sponsored by somebody who may have actually told him to say that stuff. Hoover's video, again, and this is all under the assumption that these things would be illegal. I don't think they should be because it's a draw. It's not even it's just a drawing on a piece of metal. Hoover's videos advertising the auto key card led to a substantial increase in Irvin's sales. He sold more than 2,000 of the cards in only a few months. Multiple purchases of the auto key card testified at trial that they learned about it from Hoover's videos and purchased the card intending to use it to convert to AR-15 type weapons into machine guns. Are they in prison? Are they in prison for owning machine gun parts? I doubt it. Just saying. Federal agents executed a warrant and found 1,500 of these in Irving's home. This is ridiculous. So what they're saying with this whole case and the fact that they were found guilty is if you have drawings of machine gun parts or machine guns that you can readily convert into a gun using sheet metal, tools, and hours of work, then that's a machine gun and that's illegal. So basically, if you have a blueprint of any machine gun, whether it's in a book or on your computer, you're a felon because you're not allowed to have drawings. Because according to the ATF, just having metal in proximity to any machinery that could convert it into a machine gun makes you a felon. Because I see no difference between a sheet metal that has the etching on it for you to cut out and you actually having a piece of sheet metal and a blueprint right next to it. It's the same thing. One is a already cut stencil that you still have to cut out, and one is a blueprint, and then you just draw the stencil on the metal and cut it out. So blueprints are now illegal. Blueprints. So if any of you guys have those tear down posters of like say like an MG42 or something, like those big poster blow ups where it shows like each of the little parts and the blueprint like takedown of a machine gun or something, and you have it like hanging up in your gun room or whatever. Well, that's illegal, and you could go to prison for that, according to this decision. So I'm hoping that they go ahead and they appeal this decision and roll it back because that's ridiculous in my opinion. There's no reason why these guys should be in prison. Apparently, also, he asked the ATF beforehand if selling this was okay. And then, just like the pistol brace rule and the bump stocks, they just turned around and was like, oh, yeah, never mind. It's illegal. You're going to prison. So, yeah. The ATF is ridiculous. They change their minds on things that are legal all the time and try to make laws that aren't laws. The definition of a machine gun is not met by this product. So, I don't know, man. We really need to pay attention to decisions like this and fight back against it because this guy needs help fighting this. I believe he's scheduled to be sentenced next month or something, but I'm hoping that his appeal goes through. It's a terrible decision, and I hope he appeals it, and I hope he gets let out of prison because this is a miscarriage of justice. I just hopefully the decision of bump stocks will influence the decision on pistol braces, and hopefully both of those decisions will influence this particular case as well. And hopefully he's out of jail in less than a year. But who knows how long he'll be in there based on this terrible decision. But, again, with that, guys, that's the end of today's episode. Again, drop a comment down below. Let me know, what you think about some of this stuff. Let me know what you think about the whole Crowder thing. Do you think that he's abusive, or do you think that I explained away a majority of the concerns? What do you What do you think about some guy's house getting raided for freaking Magic the Gathering cards, and then this guy getting arrested for something that's just like a piece of metal? Like we're living in a ridiculous world right now. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys all for watching. I appreciate you guys all for listening. For those of you who just kind of put this on in the background. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. This has been the AfterWork Podcast, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.